Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Welcome to episode 1505, and thank you for joining us today. So we are going to talk about making distinctions, understanding nuances. This is the key between those who are successful at anything and those who are unsuccessful. And you obviously want to be in the successful camp, and we will help you be there. So successful people pay attention to the details, the distinctions, and they look at things with a deeper understanding than people who paint a broad brush, say things like, well, the market is good or the market is bad, and nobody really knows what that means. And so as we talk with my friend Josh Simon today about commercial real estate, and I think you'll find this to be rather amazing because most people would say the commercial real estate market is awful. It's so bad, especially the retail market and the hospitality market and other parts of the commercial market. But what you're going to find is that, interestingly, in suburban markets, the commercial real estate market is faring much better than many might think. So it, again, requires a lot of distinction. And if you care nothing about commercial real estate and you care only about housing and only about residential real estate, that's fine. But this is important because you're going to understand more about the broader economy and, most importantly, about distinctions that other people fail to make. My friend Josh Simon is very successful. He's been on the show before many years ago, and so we're going to have him back today to talk a little bit about commercial real estate during the pandemic. But first, I want to go over a couple of charts with you that I just found to be amazing. Maybe I'll share these at our upcoming Meet the Masters conference. And by the way, thanks to all of you who have been buying tickets like they are going out of style. When I was a kid, my mom used to say, Jason, you spend money like it's going out of style. My mom being a conservative, not Depression era, but, her parents were definitely Depression era, my grandparents, had that Depression era mindset of, you got to save money. And the funny thing is, as a young kid, I guess I intuitively knew that money actually was going out of style. My mom was accusing me of spending money like it's going out of style. And then I realized, as I got older and understood inflation, that money actually was going out of style. And what I mean by that is the value of it has been inflated away, hasn't it? You all understand what I'm talking about. All of you regular listeners, you get it. You understand. So anyway, as we look at these charts, this is fascinating stuff, folks. Fascinating stuff going on in the economic data out there. So first of all, I talk about packaged commodities investing, my trademark system, the Hartman Risk Evaluator, for understanding what really makes the value of a property and what causes a property to gain, lose, or maintain its value. And I talk to you about the ingredients of a house, the ingredients of an apartment building. Well, what are they made out of, right? They're made out of lumber, concrete, glass, steel, copper wire, petroleum products, labor, energy. Those are the basic ingredients of a house. And guess what? Those ingredients are getting really expensive. Now, isn't this all counterintuitive? Because if you follow my YouTube channel, and I got to tell you, I really wish I had done more on YouTube sooner. one of the things I love about it is I get to read all of your comments, and I get to read some comments from people who clearly do not listen to the podcast. Because if they listen to the podcast, I know they would be a lot smarter. And you can tell by their comments how dumb they are. But hey, I appreciate any comments because it's good for the algorithm. Isn't that weird that we live in a dystopian world where we play to algorithms? Yes, algorithms from God, the God of Google. Oh, that's a shameful God. But it is God nonetheless. Anyway, so the God of Google rules our life. And comments, good and bad, the algorithm doesn't care. Just makes the video more popular if people say a bunch of stupid stuff. So, okay, hey, thank you for the stupid comments. I know none of you listening are making stupid comments, but to those out there who don't listen to the podcast and make really dumb comments, I appreciate it. But, it really goes to show you how the general public is just so uninformed about the way things work in real estate and the economy. Because, a couple of months ago, we could have all thought this was going the other way for sure, and it turned out to be completely the opposite. Now, granted, it's not over. Like the saying goes, it's not over till the fat lady sings, right? And she has not done her number yet, and we're going to see a lot more. This is definitely maybe the third inning of this whole thing, and we've got a long way to go. So we'll see how it all works out. But right now, I can definitely tell you that people who invest in the futures market, that are risk takers looking toward the future, are saying that many things are pretty rosy. They're pretty rosy. And one of them is commodities. So I am looking at a chart, a commodities chart from the Wall Street Journal, and this is steel and iron ore futures. So what do you think is going to happen to the price of steel and iron ore? Well, apparently the investors are very bullish. They are rallying in the futures market. So here is the price of rebar. So what do they think is happening? Well, they think the future is going to be pretty bright and that this stuff is going to get a lot more expensive. So the worst points were right at the end of January, early February. Just for reference, this number was 3,200. And I frankly don't know what that is. I don't know if it's per ton, per metric ton. Frankly, I don't know. Bushel, I'm not sure. But it doesn't matter, because the only question when you analyze anything is really compared to what? Compared to what? So comparing the price to itself is what we want to know. Compared to what? This, ladies and gentlemen, is why I like looking at charts. Because charts always tell me compared to what? They answer the fundamental Jason Hartman question, compared to what? Question mark. So January, a low point. Got even worse in the middle of March. Well, end of March, early April. Got even worse. Down below 3,200. And it's been up, 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 up. Had a little down trough here of 3,300. Rose as high as 3,400. And then it went down. That was about middle of May. And overall, it's been an upward trajectory. Now the price is $37.47. So investors think that there is going to be a lot of demand for rebar. What is rebar used for? Construction, dear Watson. Is that how the saying goes, dear Watson? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. So bullish. The same is true of copper. And the same is true with lumber prices. Lumber prices are way up. And there's a little statement here, a little caption under this graph. It says, prices for forest products like lumber and plywood have soared because of the booming demand from home builders making up for lost time. A do-it-yourself explosion sparked by stay-at-home orders and the race among restaurants and bars to install outdoor seating areas. Did I not tell you that there would be a DIY explosion? I did tell you that. I told you home improvement was going to be a big deal. Did I not tell you there was going to be a building explosion in suburban markets? Yes, I did. Was I right? Yes, Jason, you were absolutely right. You predicted that before anybody else in the news media did. Everybody else was talking about it 2 months later than you. Pat on the back time. Okay, so there's a couple of charts for you that are interesting because the ingredients, the commodities that are included in your properties have gone up, up, up. Now, one more thing, we got to get to our guest, but I've talked to you about supply-demand shock. We've talked about that quite a bit. Now, let's look at one more chart, and this one should really blow your mind. This is the industrial production year over year of Mexico, our neighbor to the south. Mexico's industrial production. It has cratered. You would think this is Wuhan I'm looking at right during the main part of the lockdown when they were putting razor barbed wire around apartment complexes so people couldn't get out. Welcome to China. So Mexico's industrial production, this chart, if you could see it, it's like it dropped off the earth. It's like they said to Columbus, there be dragons at the end of the map. You will fall off the edge of the ocean and fall into deep space. That's what this chart looks like. And industrial production in Mexico did decline a lot. But guess when the last time that happened? That was 2008, 2009. And it didn't decline anywhere near as much as it is down now. So Mexico is on siesta because this is like, wow. And I'll tell you, if you just go look on Amazon and shop for stuff. I mean, listen, I told you, I'm a consumer. My mom always gave me a hard time when I was growing up. Jason, you spend money like it's going out of style. Ask her yourself. She used to say that to me all the time. Not really good for my prosperity consciousness, probably. But whatever, our parents screw us up, don't they? Okay. My mom's probably listening. I'm going to get a phone call after this. Anyway, if you go shop online, you're going to see that the price of things, of a lot of things, is a lot higher. I'm going to give you an example about a table that I bought 2 years ago. A little table. I wanted to buy another one because I like the table. Price is dramatically higher now. So it's a weird time, folks. Okay, without further ado, let's talk about commercial real estate. But before we do that, you need to go to jasonhartman.com/masters, jasonhartman.com/masters, and get your tickets for Meet the Masters of Income Property with, I didn't do my other speaker announcement, did I? Ken McElroy. Rich Dad author Ken McElroy is back with us. This is now the third time he's spoken at one of our events. And of course, Sharon Lechter of Rich Dad fame as well is speaking. We've got Harry Dent, economist Harry Dent, and George Gammon, who was just here in Florida, and I had brunch with him on Saturday morning. So it's always great to see George. So we got an all-star lineup, and we are doing the schedule and the agenda. Wow. It's jam-packed. You're going to learn all sorts of great stuff at Meet the Masters. Virtual online conference, jasonhartman.com/masters. Here is our guest, Josh Simon. Hey, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome a good friend of mine, Josh Simon. He is a commercial real estate brokerage owner and developer and just a tremendous success story. I met him several years ago when I lived in Arizona, and he has just done amazing, amazing things. And I asked him to come on with us today and give us an update on the commercial real estate market. And understand, of course, when people talk about commercial real estate, what are they talking about? Are they talking about retail, office, industrial, self-storage? What type of properties are they talking about? Apartment complexes. So commercial real estate is a bit of a misnomer. And then there are many types within that. So we hope to clear up some misconceptions about commercial real estate and about what you're hearing on the news today, and just talk about what the path forward is for some possible reuses of various commercial properties. So we'll go into that. Just want to say that this is a general discussion of some rather complex topics. So, of course, if anything is discussed that might require tax or legal advice or other professional advice, get that from the appropriate professional. Nothing is meant to be specific for your situation specifically. Also, be sure to check out our privacy policy and terms of service at jasonhartman.com. And now let's bring Josh on. Josh, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How you doing?
Hey, welcome. Good. It's good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're probably sitting in an empty office, I'm guessing.
Yes, partially empty, but we're in Arizona, so we're slowly opening back up.
Good to hear. Well, hey, what's going on in the commercial real estate market? Just kind of broadly, we're all hearing tales of distress and disaster. Give us a little background and tell us who you are and what you do so people understand better.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me. So we're a commercial real estate development company based here in Scottsdale. As you can see from the slide, we've developed 184 projects in 22 states. We've done this mostly single tenant net lease retail. So think Starbucks, Dollar General, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly, Verizon, as well as small multi-tenant retail buildings, that might have a nail salon, a haircut place, as well as some medical office buildings in the past, and then also redeveloping former grocery stores, old Walmart. So we've kind of run the spectrum on the retail side. And so we like to consider ourselves a pretty good expert in the retail space. I think one big thing, the news paints is this major disaster in retail. And, I think you kind of have to break that up into a couple categories here. You have, I think, the most pain being felt in the mall space. And what this is, with JCPenney filing for bankruptcy and some of these Nordstrom's closing, 16 full-line department stores, this is going to force a mall shakeout that was going to be happening nonetheless over the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to speed that up. The next level you have is what we call power centers. So think of power centers as multiple box users. So a Target and a Ross and an Office Max and a TJ Maxx and a shoe store. Those centers have been hurt pretty badly too because they were not considered mostly essential retail. And so I think that's going to continue to have a lot of pain. Where there's a ton of opportunity, and I would say some of the brighter spots in retail have been the single tenant net lease side of the business, depending on the type of tenant. Grocery anchored, which obviously grocery stores considered an essential service. And so those shopping centers and some of the tenants have remained open through this period.
Yeah, absolutely. So for an investor, the triple net lease type properties, are those the safer bet in the retail space now?
Yeah, and you've seen demand go up. And I think on the single tenant, what type of tenant it is. And before, towards the end for the last few years, right before COVID, it was experiential is what everyone wanted. And now it's essential. And so essential is, O'Reilly Auto Parts, for example, and your other auto parts stores were considered essential because you got to keep the wheels turning. Your auto repair, your dollar stores, because they sell essential services, and obviously grocery stores. And so we've seen demand pick up for essential type retail.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. And people have been stocking up. One part of that equation does surprise me a little bit. Has Amazon and the other internet e-tailers, have they not been able to capture much of the auto parts market? I see them trying, but auto parts stores, people aren't just buying all that stuff online. I know some of it's a little large for shipping and so forth, tires, obviously, mufflers, I guess, but maybe address just the auto parts part specifically.
Yeah. And so interesting thing about a lot of the auto parts like O'Reilly and, their competitors, for example, they do have a lot of consumer B2C, but actually they have a huge B2B business. And so what they act as is like a kind of a supply mechanism for the repair shops down the street in their areas. And so the do-it-yourself component of fixing a car, I don't know about you, I'm not very mechanically friendly. I could probably get my windshield wipers and some basic stuff. But if you get any more complicated, it's very hard to go online and figure out what part you need. And if you need your car fixed, you need it fixed right away. And so these auto parts stores act as suppliers to these repair shops that are right by them.
Got it. So they're really distributors. They're really like Amazon warehouses.
Yeah, to a large extent they can be, and they've competed, and Amazon hasn't been able to compete with them so far in that domain.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, good. So experiential versus essential, that's a great way to put it. And I remember when I think it was one of the first major experiential shopping, not malls, it's not indoors, I guess, but outdoor centers that opened. And I lived in Orange County at the time when Irvine Spectrum opened. And that was a big deal. I mean, everybody around the country was talking about that center. And of course, it had retail, but it also had a lot of entertainment component to it. So talk to us about the experiential thing. Just help us better understand or define that. And like you said, that's what every developer wanted, every investor wanted, but now it's completely shifted because the experiential has shut down, right? And now they want essential. So tell us about this dichotomy, if you would.
Yeah, and so experiential, you could think of the whole shopping center, but I also think of it as, hey, what's something that you can't easily replace online? So experiential could be going to a basketball game. It could be going to the gym, going to a F45 or an Orange Theory class, because that's experiential. And so what's happened is everyone desired to have these tenants in their shopping center. And obviously those were the first tenants forced to close. You look at movie theaters, that's an experiential tenant. And who knows, like, what is the short-term future of theaters? What kind of changes will go on? But I also think it's an exciting time to be in retail because I think there's going to be a lot of good concepts that are made stronger through this process. And I also think it reinforces the idea of having a balanced portfolio. Investments, I think for us, like a key is, hey, do we have a drive-through? Is our multi-tenant buildings, are they close to the street where, hey, we're not forced to have to drive traffic back to the theater and we can't be seen from the street. So if you're up on the street, people are still driving by. And even if that theater was closed, you still, are able to get traffic passing your storefront.
Very interesting. One of the weirdest stores that opened, I remember in the Irvine Spectrum years ago, and I got to tell you this one because this doesn't strike me as experiential very much, but it was back when, and I guess for some reason this faded out, when there were all these commercials on the radio for CT scans, okay, of your body. And I remember in Irvine Spectrum, this beautiful sort of high-end CT scanning place opened. And it was like a spa, And I thought, let me think. Does someone go out to dinner and, hey, let's go get a CT scan before dinner? I mean, that one just struck me.
And after dinner, right? You get one before.
Yeah, before and after. Sure. That just struck me as a very unusual thing. But, they have the entertainment for the kids. They'll have a merry-go-round. They'll have a Ferris wheel, like some interesting experiential stuff in there. And that's just interesting. So talk to us about online sales, if you would.
Yeah, and so what we've seen in talking to our tenants and just, being so active in the market is the online trend has definitely grown. And so we've seen people that have never done click and collect, online grocery ordering, they've done it for the first time. And that number is going to speed up. But we've also seen how important brick and mortar is. People still want to go to the grocery store. And you've seen the pickup of tenants that were deemed essential, that has continued to grow. And I think one long-term trend that comes out of this is if you think of a grocery store and what you call the center store, your paper towels, your cleaning supplies, I think that becomes even smaller in the future because I think those items, they're a commodity. You can order those online. You can get those from Amazon Pantry or from, whoever your grocery store provider is online. And so I think over time, the grocery store is going to get smaller because of that center store isn't needed as much.
Center store. What do you mean when you say that?
So if you picture when you go into a grocery store, what's on the right? produce. On the left is your meats, maybe your wine, your dairy. And so what do you have in the middle? It's all the goods that are your paper towels, your toilet paper, your cleaning supplies, your dog food. The center store is not a very profitable place in the grocery. And that's why you've seen Sprouts and Trader Joe's. They've done so well because they're not really that center store. They're very focused. They have that niche that they appeal to.
They're really focusing on food items more than supply items.
Correct. So you think of Sprouts, you have Sprouts, by you, they're really good with produce, fresh produce. They're known for their vitamins. Trader Joe's is not known for their dairy, but they're known for some of their kind of special, packaged goods, right? That you can only get there. And so what you find is people make multiple trips to different grocery stores to fulfill their needs. I know my fiance, she goes to Safeway, Trader Joe's, and Sprouts all in one quick trip.
And kind of does them all and gets the different stuff. That's great. Okay, good stuff. So the center store is going more online, and the perimeter is more in needing the bricks and mortar, right? Is that the point?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know a lot of people ordering their steaks, their produce. They want to see it. They want to touch it. They want to walk around the store.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because I buy almost everything online, but the one thing I still do, and people ask me, I still go to the grocery store. I prefer to go and get my food, and I'm mostly a shopper of the perimeter because that's where the healthier stuff is. They say, if you want to be healthy, don't shop in the center of the store, because that's all the preservatives, right? The fresh stuff's on the outside. So good stuff. Okay, so drive-through and to-go, and it's amazing, Josh, how well capitalism works and how quickly so many businesses adapted to the change. And they were, restaurants and all kinds of services that became curbside or delivery.
Yeah, and I see this trend continuing. It obviously unfortunately, it's going to hurt smaller business more proportionally that doesn't have a online presence or ordering capabilities. But I think it will force everyone to really clean up their act and get that going much faster than they obviously anticipated. The other thing that's been interesting is how fast, and I give a lot of credit to a lot of states and their governments because they have adapted quickly to allow cocktails to go, for example. Who would have thought you could walk in and buy a Greyhound to go?
I didn't know you could do that, by the way. I might go visit my restaurant here.
Yeah, and even in California, we were in Newport this past weekend, and you were able to get to go margaritas at a bar and take them home. So I think...
And just out of curiosity, were those sealed in some way?
Yeah, they have. They put a piece of tape over the straw. You put the straw in, so that way it's sealed. But I think that's a trend that that might stay in some capacity post COVID. And so I think having to go and drive, especially a drive-through lane, I think we'll see the evolution of a pickup lane. I think what hopefully happens with municipalities is, hey, they're more open to the importance of drive-thrus and creating pickup lanes. And hey, when you have, for example, Panera has an app that, you can turn on your location beacon. And when you get into the parking lot, it notifies the staff in the store that, hey, you're here for your food, and they'll bring it out to your car. And so I think all these things are going to continue to just speed up the progression that was already going to happen.
And there are a lot of really good things coming out of this difficult time. A lot of efficiencies that we might not have seen for 5 or 10 years are being adopted quickly. And it's great. I mean, it's really a great thing. Just efficiencies everywhere with online meetings, et cetera, and all of the things you just mentioned. Those will stick with us. Telemedicine, my veterinarian and my doctor both have sent me things saying, download this telemedicine app. It's I've been requesting that for years. And they said, no, we don't do telemedicine. Well, now they do finally. So these efficiencies increase the profits of those businesses, and they're greater efficiencies for the consumer. So the consumer can spend more time living their life or working and being productive, one or the other. And so these things are really quite good for the economy. It's creative destruction, and it's just happening a lot faster than it did before. So there's some good stuff here. Okay, rent collection, Josh. We've been reading and hearing a lot about this on the news, in the newspapers. Lots of articles saying rent strikes. Now, on the residential side, which is my domain, and yours is in the commercial side, I gotta say, the news media has totally overplayed this, at least with our investors. My own portfolio, everybody's paying rent. Our clients, pretty much everybody. We don't have an actual statistical survey on this, but anecdotally, the rent collection has been quite good. You never collect 100% of your rent. That's the first thing people need to understand when they look at these stats. There's no month where any big landlord ever gets 100% rent, okay? There's always a collection problem or two in the portfolio. These stats, how are they looking in commercial real estate?
Yeah, so this is our stat, and keep in mind, these are pre-deferral deals made. So that 85 is probably more like a 90, 92% from April, and that 90 is probably 95% now. And what I mean by deferral is, hey, we worked out some deferred rent for 90 days while the tenant wasn't able to open. And so we found that just communication is just so important, and the landlord-tenant relationship is really important. I think depending on, where we go back to the beginning of our conversation, what type of asset did you own? Malls, their collection's super low, right? Power centers, probably I've heard between 20 and 40%, and then grocery anchored 60 to 80. And then you get to some of mostly essential portfolio, and where we are, and you're up in the 80s and 90s. And so we feel really lucky, at what we've always kind of picked as, our investment thesis. And so I think that continues to improve for everybody going forward. The biggest challenge is going to be where do you live? And so we're back to normal here. We have people coming into our office now, and obviously with social distancing, but Arizona, you can go to the gym, we had dinner out last night. You could pretty much do anything with social distancing right now. Whereas, when we were in, Newport Beach, they were just slowly starting to open up, and most of California still remains shut, or the majority of the populous counties.
And are people wearing masks there?
At the airport, people were wearing masks. In the grocery stores, outside on the street, no. But, I was on a commercial flight, and it was probably 80% full, and everyone had masks on. So, I think people are taking it really seriously. And obviously the media is going to hype up certain examples, like when they send a picture from the Ozarks of everyone partying. There's always going to be that example. But I feel even with the opening, the restaurateurs and the gym owners here are taking it very seriously.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So triple net and the sales of those properties.
Yeah, so I think an interesting thing is they've delayed the 1031 date, depending on when you fell into your identification period, to July. What we've seen is there's been a flight to certain types of assets, drive-thrus, essential, Dollar General, O'Reilly, different types of auto dollar stores. And so we've seen that there's been a lot of demand. Pricing hasn't changed, but it's remained stable. And so I think product for good quality tenants that have a drive-through that are essential will remain stable, and more investors will continue to desire them. An interesting thing, we'll see what happens as the year develops, is if multifamily rents have kind of flatlined for the time being, you have a decrease in 1031 transactions, which means there's a decrease in buyers down the road for these types of properties. But the counter argument to that is not a lot of people are starting construction on new things right now. Just given the environment, it's harder to get financing. We've been fortunate, just because of our tenant lineup, we have 7 closings this week, 3 new projects that, 2 are ground up, one's a remodel of an existing building, and then we're selling a handful of assets as well.
This will be continued on the next episode. Thank you for listening, and happy investing. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.